Vitamin Water Zero Sugar has great taste, zero BS, and obviously zero sugar. For those with zero room in their calendar, zero patience for slow walkers, those who get 0 hours of sleep on a Saturday night, have zero filter, zero given, and zero interest in grabbing a plain, boring water. Grab a delicious Vitamin Water Zero Sugar today.
You are tuned in to the FowlWeather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
As we drop this episode, it is the first day of fall, and a hint of cool northern air filters down from Canada. October is just around the corner, and we break down the migration, harvest numbers across the country, make a comment on keeping faith in duck hunting. High-pressure system dubbed the Death Ridge sits over the northeast U.S. Hurricane season remains quiet for North America, and teal season is here. All today and more on the FowlWeather Podcast. A quick reminder to rate, follow, and like the FowlWeather Podcast to get all the latest updates on our exclusive duck migration forecast each Monday morning throughout season, plus all of our informative content. Be the guy at the coffee shop with real information about the ducks and where the ducks are at. We appreciate y'all very, very much. We thank our every week listeners. You know who you are. Those that never miss a single migration forecast episode each Monday morning. Y'all are as ate up as me about ducks, duck biology, and duck migration. You know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at. Think about that. You know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at. Our dedicated weekly listeners can pick the best days to hunt because the FowlWeather Podcast forecasts fresh ducks hot from the north. Shoot the ducks from the north before they know where they're at. I'm your host, DrMike, coming to you from the home office in Jack's Reef. Well, we hit 50 degrees again last night, and a north wind yesterday brought our first molt migrant Canada geese over the farm. All day honkers honking and streaming over the farm. It certainly got me excited for the coming fall season. Molt migrants are not our Atlantic population Arctic nesting geese, but rather local temperate nesting geese that are young or don't have a territory to breed. So they migrate into Canada from our local region here, mixing with the Arctic population that breeds up there to spend the summer in molt. That's all they do. They just go there, hang out, drop their feathers, regrow their feathers. The theory is that they are related to the geese that stay to nest, so don't want to compete with their own relatives, cousins, etc., for resources. But anyhow, they are here in abundance, and the hunting has picked up a bunch. Our early goose season here by the farm runs until the 25th of September at 15 geese per day. Every year, folks freak out because the migrants are here, and we're pounding them. The reality, a few Atlantic population Arctic nesting geese, which can't take as much pressure, are mixed in. But nearly all of these geese folks are shooting right now are molt migrants coming back. Oh, but Dr. Mike, you're wrong because these are little geese. Okay, little or light? Because the Atlantic population Arctic nesting geese and local breeders are not strongly different in size. But a molt migrant that just flew from the Arctic, it weighs less because it just burned up all its fat coming back south. These geese, though, are showing up to extremely dry conditions. We haven't seen a drop of rain in 2 weeks. The only thing keeping us going is morning dew because we're cool enough and days are short enough nowadays to hold that moisture near the ground. I actually watered pepper plants the other day because they had curled leaves. You know it's dry when it's dry enough to curl your pepper plant leaves. We are in the midst of what meteorologists call a death ridge, or a persistent high-pressure ridge that blocks incoming weather systems and creates warm and dry conditions. This pattern over the northeast U.S. has been locked in for some time, and even Hurricane Gabrielle is going to spin out into the Atlantic Ocean based on this death ridge, like nearly every named tropical storm this year. This pattern has to break, and it looks like it has started to today, Areas east of the Mississippi River that need rain should at least get 1 or 2 shots of moisture in the coming week. What we need near the farm is a drenching tropical system coming in as a wave starting off the coast of Africa, cutting across the Atlantic Ocean, and coming up the Atlantic coast, headed up the East Coast, and we need a good 4 to 6 inch rain from one of these systems. I guess that'd be a start. We've done really well naturally growing great moist soil this year where we've in our wetlands where we've dried out. We just now need rain to bring water to that food in many places. The prairies are a different story, and sheet water is right now sitting in bean fields, standing bean fields. That and still warm means that October doesn't look like a time when ducks are going to move to any great degree. Anyhow, not much else going on the farm, waiting on rain, training the dogs, prepping for bow season to shoot those boring brown squares, and doing the good work for the ducks. We're thinking about starting the migration forecast next week. I think that'd be September 29th, but we might hold off given that it's just warm and really ducks aren't moving other than that kind of prep where they move out of their breeding areas, kind of out of the boreal into the prairies, and in the east they move kind of out of the tree line down into the Great Lakes region. But that's just like not based on weather. That's just moving out of a place that doesn't have a ton of food into a place with more, carbohydrates and things where you can start to ramp up. So that's already happened to a large degree. It goes on through basically from about mid-August to early September, and then after that, weather becomes more influential, as you all know from listening to the podcast all these years now. So I don't know that there's a lot going on. It's pretty damn warm, so we're going to probably hold off on doing that for 2 weeks. We'll come up with another great episode next week, though, so please join us. And hey, my friends, remember to get your limited edition Foul Weather Podcast duck call from Beckman Game Calls at beckmangamecalls.com. This is in the Edison edition. This beauty sounds like a duck and features the sharp Foul Weather Podcast logo. So not many of these remaining, so grab yours today before it's too late. Beckman Game Calls has it dialed in. If you want a duck call that is adjustable to your air pressure and sounds like a duck, this is it. I've blown a ton of different calls in my life, but this one is the real deal. Look, we don't endorse just anything. We are only going to put forward a call that works. The Edison by Chris Beckman of Beckman Game Calls. Yeah, this beauty sounds like a duck. I only know of one published research paper focused on what makes a duck call sound like a duck. Go look me up and you will see that colleagues and I have the only paper published in scientific literature about what makes a duck call sound like a duck. For sure, Chris Beckman did his homework and this call sounds like a duck. This guy knows how to make a duck call, period. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the proof. First a hen recording, and then the Edison in the big woods of Arkansas. Visit them today at beckmangamecalls.com. And we are back. I got a great question last week on social media through Messenger. Dr. Mike, how do you produce so much content each week? How do you keep it going? Congrats on getting past 100 episodes. Keep it up, and may your skies be filled. First, thank you for the great comment and question. So here's how it works. The dogs get me up, and we got 2 yellow labs. We got Jaeger and Dr. Zug. And I guess I could explain that again because I don't know that folks have heard this one before, but we kind of went with German kind of sciencey names. Zugenruhe is migratory restlessness. It's a German term. It's used in German bird migration research. The Germans are known very well for their work on bird migration. And I've got a lot of German and Polish background, so we went with that. We went with Zugenruhe. And then went with Zug for short. We ended up, we first wrote his name down as Z-U-G at the vet, but everybody kept calling him Zug because that's like a umlaut or I don't know, some kind of funky thing over the U, which makes it Zug. So we had to end up spelling it Z-O-O-G so that everybody could actually get that one right? And then, so he's 11 and a half. He's totally retired. He's got epilepsy. He has seizures like once every 18 days. It's wonderful. He poops on the floor, pisses himself. Lots of times it happens as my wife and I are trying to get ready for work. But anyhow, and then there's Jaeger, and that's Jägermeister, which is basically game master, and so it's another German term as well. So anyhow, dogs get me up. More information than you all needed, right? But Jaeger's 8.5, so we're looking actually at getting a black lab pup from South Carolina. I think we're looking at some breeding right now, and excited for that coming up. Jaeger's getting a little rough around the edges. She's got some shoulder stuff, and, she's starting to sleep more. So you know how it is. Got to have one good working dog at the farm and for the marsh. But dogs get me up, and mostly Jaeger. She jumps out of bed about 4 a.m. each morning. She's on quite a rhythm. The last time I set an alarm was turkey season, so I let the dogs, get me up. I let them out with lighted collars in the dark to do their business. I open the barn for the day, put on a pot of coffee, feed the dogs, and then sit down with that warm cup of coffee and get to work. I basically keep farmer hours, right? The wife, 3 days a week. She gets up and goes to the gym at 5 a.m., but I crunch numbers as needed and write, sit at the computer and write until about, 8 a.m., if not a little later. Then I go to my other job, which is a university professor teaching about waterfowl wetlands. That all runs throughout the day. Sometimes I work at home on days I don't teach and, take a break, maybe even an hour power nap. The dogs get walked and trained midday when I can, or at the end of the day if I'm at the university, for that time. Wife usually doesn't get home from her work with Ducks Unlimited until like 6 or 7, so I try to stop work about 5 to pick stuff from the garden this time of year and, start to make dinner, maybe shoot bows and have a beer with the neighbors. And I'm in bed usually between 8 or 9 unless it's like game night and the Bills are playing. And then we do it all over again, right? On weekends, I kind of tend to finish up episodes and record, so especially during season, all the weather information and duck migration predictions are as up to date as possible. So I kind of really wait to get all the good information in there. But to be honest, the episode content doesn't always come to me right away. But, a lot of quality information that we produce here is also information that I use in the classroom. I mean, of course, just in a bit more formal sense for classroom presentation. So while the podcast and my real job are kind of kept separate, they certainly cross over, and I try not to do everything twice. Efficiency matters. So I try to really make the content for the podcast a lot of what I deliver in the classroom and vice versa. So anyhow, I hope that answers the great question from our listener. A clear point here, though, is that I work hard to bring quality information, facts to y'all on the podcast, because that is also the stuff I'm teaching in the classroom. And I'm not going to send the next generation of waterfowl and wetland scientists, conservationists, and managers out into the world with conspiracies and crazy talk. So just facts and how the waterfowl world works, right? These kids, man, they need to be prepared for the facts and how the real world works. So we bring all that into the classroom as well. And honestly, interacting with folks through the podcast and just the general waterfowl community continues to give me a great sense. It keeps my finger on the pulse of what's going on out there. So keep sending great questions. Keep asking, what's up, Dr. Mike? So, and if you want to know more about what we do at ESF, or the New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry, we do run a Facebook page. Just use the @ @OurWaterfowl, all one word, into Google to find that page. Anyhow, let's jump into some La Nina talk. It is really setting up as a repeat of last year, maybe slightly stronger. And we will likely have La Nina conditions again this coming duck season. They're giving us about a 70% chance of that forming by October, November, December, that 3-month period. But that doesn't make it a full-blown La Nina event, which has to have at least 5 consecutive overlapping 3-month periods in that La Nina condition. I mean, what it means is that we just have La Nina conditions, and that doesn't always present itself as strong impacts on North American weather as opposed to like a full-blown event. Also remember that during a La Nina event, there may be opportunity for snow and cold in the prairies, which would be nice to refill wetlands. but that we would also get wet conditions in the upper Midwest and Pacific Northwest, which could hold up migration of birds going south. We also get dry and warm conditions across the southern U.S., which ain't good for daily duck movement either. Anyhow, our first long-term weather and duck migration forecast won't come out until late October, and all signs point to a difficult prediction this year. But there is still time. It's another month, and there's a chance for some atmospheric conditions to start to set up where we can better predict the patterns for this winter. So we will have to wait and see. Just hang with us on this one and be patient. We're working on it.
This episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Psst, healthcare pros, word's out, and it's too good to keep quiet. Look, LinkedIn is revolutionizing job hunting, making it possible to search by specialty, shift preference, and salary. Endless scrolling is out. Whether it's a mental health therapist or dental hygienist, finding the perfect role is faster and easier than ever. Head to linkedin.com/healthcare and start your search today.
The Hilton sale is on. For 10 days only, you can save up to 20% on stays this fall and beyond. Don't wait. The sale ends September 29th. Book your stay and save at Hilton.com. Terms apply. Hilton, for the stay.
Next up, duck migration and the winter solstice. So please stick with me. The Farmland Group is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisal across Arkansas, Mississippi, Missouri, Louisiana, Georgia, Tennessee, and growing. Contact them today at farmlg.com. Hey, I'm telling you, do not hesitate because these folks are busy buying, selling, and providing consulting and management strategies that build value into your portfolio and your land. So get in the queue today. Get on their radar. Get on their books. Man, y'all won't be disappointed. Contact the Farmland Group today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com. We also got asked questions last week about ducks as calendar migrants and that they use the winter solstice as a way to determine when to stop migrating south. That is, after the winter solstice, ducks don't go south anymore. Okay, you might have some observations at your lease or farm that duck numbers are better in December and then they leave or nothing gets better in January. But that only partially has to do with migration timing. It's just likely that you aren't managing your area well enough to hold or attract migrating ducks into January. Yeah. At some point in winter, there is a point when they are decreasingly likely to migrate any farther south than necessary because they're just going back north. For us on Lake Ontario, when I was working with diving ducks and sea ducks for my doctorate work, it was basically the last week of January. Once it hit that point, we never saw a decrease in duck abundance no matter how cold it got. But to think that the date of no return is the winter solstice is fucking ridiculous. And let me tell you why. You have to think about this in an evolutionary context and physiologically how the circadian and circannual rhythm of animals works. Hang with me, folks, here. This one gets a little bumpy and tight, but if you got to go back and listen to it again, please do, because I think this is a really critical comment about how the animal world works regarding their circadian and circannual rhythms. These are the biological clocks in all animals that keep us on a daily and annual schedule. Earlier, I noted that my dogs get me up around 4 a.m. every morning, but that certainly moves earlier and later depending on what they did the day before. Hormonal changes in their bodies affected by workout, stress and relaxation, laying around and adjusting their body's circadian rhythm. It doesn't happen exactly at 4 a.m. every single day. So hormonal influences change whether they get up earlier or later after the day before as far as workout. Imagine having an exact circadian rhythm of 24 hours. You wouldn't survive because your hormones wouldn't work to adjust your schedule to the circadian rhythm. And in most animals, the circadian rhythm is actually around 23 hours. And that physiologically forces it to be adjusted by hormonal levels afterwards. Otherwise, You would just get up an hour earlier every day, and then you'd be pretty effing screwed. In birds, the internal clock that keeps pace of what time of year it is, this is that circannual rhythm, these internal clocks are more influential on timing of bird activities in areas where photoperiod is a poor predictor of environmental conditions, like the equator, where there's like 12 hours of light and 12 hours of dark, and the weather conditions aren't linked to photoperiod. Essentially, they have to use their internal clock to dictate annual events. In contrast, where photoperiod and seasonal weather events are more closely linked, these birds rely on their internal clock less, or said another way, they don't just rely on their internal clock in day length, but hormonal factors influence annual events to a greater degree. So why is this important for ducks living in a seasonal environment where days get long and it gets warm in summer, and days get short and it gets cold and snowy in winter? The shortest day of the year and the coldest day of the year are not coupled because the Earth's energy results in days being colder in the northern hemisphere for about 2 months after the winter solstice. So across millions of years, evolutionary time, if one group of ducks just used photoperiod and another group of the same species had a hormonal response in addition to reacting to day length, that is, the second group used photoperiod but also environmental cues to make decisions about migration that influence living and dying, at the end of the day, the duck that uses weather cues to make decisions ends up surviving at a greater rate than the duck that only used circannual rhythms and photoperiod. And the result? The duck that survives can carry on its genes and pass them on to the next generation. Hence, the evolution of the adaptation of migration and use of environmental cues by ducks to survive to the next year, breed, and carry on that behavior. Our strongest environmental cue for these critters is weather. So do ducks stop migrating on the winter solstice on December 20th? F no. That'd be stupid. To think that ducks are photoperiod migrators in North America makes no sense other than maybe blue-winged teal because they are headed to a more stable environment for the winter of Central and South America. That is the only duck that we have that we've detected that photoperiod is a better predictor of timing of migration than weather in all of our research. That doesn't mean that weather doesn't or can't play a role for blue-winged teal, just that the time of year is a better predictor, or they probably adjust way less to weather than other ducks, say gadwall, widgeon, mallards, and so on, that have more variable resources during migration in winter, and so it makes more sense to adjust timing of migration based on weather conditions. And those are the biggest factors affecting food availability and rest resources on the continent. So, makes sense. It's how they survive. It's how they live. Anyhow, feel free to blow smoke and call mallards and other ducks calendar migrators, but that just don't make sense because then every duck would do the same thing and all be at about the same location or latitude on the same day, and that just ain't true, my friends. Science is a pesky thing, my friends across duck country. Up next, some harvest number digging, so please stick with me. How many days have you had empty skies over the duck blind? Your property can be more with wildlife strategies. It is no secret that hiring a consultant, an expert in managing water, woods, and fields, an expert in duck food, an expert in hunting pressure management, hiring a consultant yields better habitat for the critters you chase. Less empty skies, more quality days of field, more smiles for miles with family and friends. If that's your game and goal, contact Ryan Delaney at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. And hey, here's the deal. I'm filled up for summer 2025 with clients up north, but if our northern friends have a property in need of some love, contact me at DrMike at FowlWeather.co for a summer 2026 site visit. Okay, and we are back to dig into harvest numbers a bit once again. There's really a lot that can be done with these numbers, more than we can do or want to do right now, but we want to refresh people on a few points as we approach the season of harvest. First, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Harvest Information Program updated how they collect data from mail to an online reporting for waterfowl harvested, and that allowed them to increase their sampling frame of the duck hunter population. That resulted in a pretty substantial jump in the estimated harvest for the past 2 years, and they're not certain yet if those numbers are more realistic or if they introduce some type of bias. So the 23-24 and 24-25 season waterfowl harvest metrics should be considered preliminary and not final at this time. The person that was working on determining what happened statistically to create that increase took the early buyout provided by this current administration, and that current administration also continues to defund and understaff the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Office of Migratory Bird Management, so it's unlikely that there will be enough time to complete that review and understand what's going on with that bias anytime soon. This has nothing to do with incompetence of these people at all, just sheer hours in the day and the amount of staff that can contribute time. Anyhow, for the purpose of the analysis here, we are using 1999 when the Harvest Information Program started through 2022 data, which is a good time span with a kind of strongly fluctuating duck population, duck harvest, and duck hunter days afield. We are also just using Mississippi flyway data for now as an example, although we also would like to dig into other flyways as time allows in the future. So please shoot me questions about your state or, hunter numbers and changes in harvest and such, right? Also understand that the transition from mailings to online data collection by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was based on the need to reduce costs and increase efficiency, which I'm betting y'all asked for from the federal government. So you can't have it both ways. You can't be, what the happened with these high numbers, and then also ask to have the budget severely cut that funds the people that work to continue to collect the good information and complete these surveys that keep ducks running and duck hunting running. So no matter what you've seen, here is the reality throughout the recent past from 1999 to the 2022-23 season, the period that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has standardized data. All right, so again, I'm working with that 1999 to 22 data. It covers a lot of what people are currently talking about, and it provides context for kind of the ups and downs of duck populations, changes in habitat, duck hunter effort. Again, I'm just digging into some of the Mississippi flyway data. If folks want more, or maybe more specific questions, you can email me at DrMike@FowlWeather.co or shoot us a Facebook or Instagram message. Kind of happy to dig into those data more as needed. I am going to start with Arkansas because y'all are the duck capital, and it shows. But some other states may surprise you. I'm going to call the two data sets that we're discussing trends and present. Trends going to be that 1999 to 2022, and present is going to be just the 22-23 data. To be honest, though, given what I've seen of the 23-24 and 24-25 data, they're just kind of about the same. So don't throw me under the bus here. I'm just trying to use the available data that is going to tell us what is happening, period. Also, what we are reporting is ducks per hunter day, which deals with and includes changes in effort among years, specifically the declining number of duck hunters. Lots of folks like to show massive declines in mallard harvest for some states, and that is just deceptive because it doesn't take into account the number of duck hunter days. It takes people in the field to shoot ducks, so we adjust for effort. The FowlWeather Podcast never F's with you, and we don't do crazy conspiracy talk either. We just report it as clean as it gets. All right, here we go. In Arkansas, they shot 1.16 mallards per hunt as an average for that 1999 to 2022 period. For other states, that was 0.83 for Mississippi and 0.21 for Louisiana. That's miserable. Tennessee was shooting 0.89 mallards per hunt day, right? So Arkansas was the capital of mallard harvest, and that is still the case. But let's just tackle that a bit more because the mallard harvest per hunter day trend aligns really closely with the BPOP for Arkansas and Tennessee. But for Louisiana and Mississippi, we see a declining mallard harvest even after correcting for the effort of how many days people hunted. Later here, we're going to point out northern Mississippi flyway trends. But here, let us make a point and listen very closely. The states that are farther south in general than farther north in the Mississippi flyway, specifically Louisiana and Mississippi, are shooting fewer mallards recently, whereas the states like Arkansas and Tennessee are just holding strong. The number of mallards they are shooting per hunter day are generally flat following the BPOP. Of course, on really cold years or really warm years, those numbers fluctuate based on weather. But the point is that the BPOP affects what they are shooting. So the farthest south states are getting less mallards, likely because these ducks just aren't making it there. But now let's look at non-mallard harvest, and Louisiana and Mississippi have not significantly declined or increased in harvest per hunter day, but rather those numbers fluctuate with the BPOP. So Louisiana and Mississippi harvest per hunter day are fluctuating with the BPOP of non-mallard ducks. In contrast, Tennessee is actually seeing a slight increase in non-mallard harvest per hunter day. It makes sense if you think about it. Ducks are settling for the winter farther north. It's just a fact, folks. It's happening. Can't fight it. Okay, let's move north to Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. I just did a bunch of these as kind of an example. I didn't cover every state because you'd get bored with all the numbers. But Illinois and Minnesota have seen a decrease in mallard harvest per hunter day, with Wisconsin being stable through time. Again, makes sense to me given the decline in mallards in the Great Lakes part of the world through time, as there's less breeding mallards there. However, the harvest of non-mallard ducks per hunter day for all three of these states, Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, has seen an statistical increase, suggesting that ducks other than mallards are increasingly becoming important as part of the bag. So folks are shifting to shooting non-mallard ducks. When we compare southern duck hunting hotspots like Arkansas and Louisiana to our northern friends, it becomes super revealing just how much better it is to be a duck hunter in the South in general. For instance, Arkansas shot 1.6, 2.8, and 3.1 times as many mallards per hunter day on average from 1999 to 2022 than Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. For ducks other than mallards, that equates to 1.7, 1.6, and 2.2 times as many shot by Arkansas for the same states. Louisiana, for that 1999 to 2002 period, shot 1.9, 1.8, and 2.4 times as many non-mallard ducks per hunter day than Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. If we just look at the 2022-23 season, the most recent season we've got good data for, Louisiana shows 3.47 non-mallard ducks per hunter day on average. That is just a crazy number. And it's 1.7, 1.7, and 2.1 times greater than Illinois, Minnesota, and Wisconsin, respectively, in the same year. Y'all can complain as much as you want, but the sky ain't falling. Duck numbers will continue to fluctuate, so go buy duck stamps. Support conservation of wetlands and grasslands. Keep duck culture strong. Okay, and teal season has been strong for some and dismal for others. That's teal season. It's always been that way. Blue-winged teal move mostly on photoperiod and are fickle. So some folks have them, others don't. Here today, gone tomorrow. Yeah, the weather influences them a bit, but they're mostly just headed south when they head south. Folks are finding them, and they ain't talking. The population of blue wings is also down, but that in no way indicates that hunting is driving anything about blue wing population. So get after them. And hopefully the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, if they can actually get the Office of Migratory Bird Management properly staffed, can work on a quality blue wing teal population model so we don't end up with these yo-yoing seasons that make no difference in the BPOP for blue wings. It's all about habitat, kids, so get after them. Have fun. Thanks for listening. And as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.
Every minute your finance team spends wrestling with data is a minute lost. Insight Software's AI-powered insights instantly move you from complexity to clarity. Automated analysis, real-time reporting, strategic recommendations, all at your fingertips. Transform how your finance team works and watch your business grow. Stop wasting time. Start making smarter decisions. Learn more at insightsoftware.com/AI.